Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Johnny B here with devslopes.com, and in this video we are going to continue working on our UI. In the last one we left off here, we created our login VC, and in this one we're going to create our create account VC. So when we click on this, it's going to take us over to, let me see here, it's going to take us over to this screen right here. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started on that. You can see that we have some similar elements, so we're going to be able to reuse some of the work that we did in our last lesson. Same close buttons, similar text fields, and similar buttons, so that's good. So yeah, let's just jump right in. First off, we're going to need a new view controller. So I'm going to drag in a view controller from our library here, and we're going to be segueing over to it at some point. So I'm going to click here on our login VC, control drag, and drag over and say show. All right, then we're going to go ahead and create an identifier for this segue here. I'm going to say to create account. Okay, I'm going to copy that, and let's create a constant for it over in our constants file. I'm going to say let to create account equal. I'm going to paste that and put it in quotation marks. I'm going to save that and jump back over to our storyboard. All right, so we got our new view controller set up here in the storyboard. We're going to need a controller file for it, right? So I'm going to right click on our controller folder and say new file, and say Cocoa Touch class and next, and it is of subclass UI view controller, and we want this to be called, I think, create account VC. All right, I'm going to say next and create. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of some of this unnecessary code here. All right, and that looks good, ready for us to work with. Real quick, let's go ahead and just add the segue action here. So here in the storyboard, I'm going to open up our assistant editor with the login VC. So I held option and clicked on login VC. That opens up the assistant editor. And let's scroll over to our login VC here. I'm going to grab this don't have an account button and create an IB action for it. So I'm going to control drag, and we're going to make an IB an action. I'm going to say this, say create account button pressed. There we go. So we got an action. That looks good. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and close this, close the assistant editor to get back to our standard editor. Jump over to our loginvc.swift file to the IB action that we just created. And we're just going to perform a segue over to that empty view controller that we got right now. So I'm going to say perform segue with identifier. The constant that we created is called to underscore create account. Sender is nil. All right, so that looks good. You're going to save that and run it. And what we should see is that when we click on that create account button, it should segue us to a blank empty screen. All right, so clicking on the menu, going to log in and don't have an account, and there we go. All right, so we know that that's working. But now we need to go ahead and add all of that, all of those UI elements. So one more time, let's jump back into our design document. This is kind of like our recipe book. It tells us all of the steps that we need to take and what it's supposed to look like and stuff. All right. So we got a label up here, our close button, some text fields and their dividers, an image here for our avatar images that we'll be able to select here in the future, a button for the background color as well, and a button to create the account. All right. So that looks good. So I think what we're going to do to save some time is we're going to copy most of these elements and use those in our new view controller. So what I did is I just drag and selected all of these, and I'm going to say Command C for copy. Then I'm going to come over here to our new view controller, click, make sure the view is selected, and just do Command V to paste. And then we can kind of drag this up to where we want it more or less. So that's about right there. Then we can just kind of delete the things that we don't need. We don't need this logo, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to pull this label outside of this stack view because we don't need this stack view anymore. So I'm going to delete the stack view here. And that label got kind of moved down here, weird. All right, so that's kind of a pain. But this button goes down here, and this guy comes back up here. One thing, however, when we do that copy is these copy over with some of their constraints. You can see that this login button is trying to be constrained to the bottom of the stack view. So we can go ahead and remove some of those constraints. So I'm going to come over here to the size inspector, and I'm going to say top space, and we're just going to delete that constraint as well as this one here. So we're just left with the width and height constraints, which is what we want. So let's go ahead and constrain this guy down here. We're going to say 20 from the bottom, and we are going to center it horizontally. All right, so that looks good. Let's go ahead and rename it. This is going to be create account, and that looks good. Let's go ahead and do this guy up here. So I'm going to say 8 from the top and 0 from the right with constraint to margins checked. Say add 2 constraints. And then for this guy right here, this is going to say create an account. That looks good. I'm going to click and say command equal. And then I'm going to drag you down here a little bit. This is going to be 40 from the top. And then centered horizontally. All right, that looks good. This stack view here, we already have 2 of these that we need. We have a username and password. We need a third one called email. All right, so once again, awesome thing with stack views is I can just take these 2 right here, copy them, and paste. And it just puts them right inside of the stack view below the other one. So I can then change this username to actually say email, and that's it. So easy. Don't have to mess with a whole bunch of individual constraints. Just works real nice. So then we need to constrain this stack view as a whole. We're going to go 40 from the top or 40 from the bottom of the label above it, the create an account label. Say add 1 constraint, and horizontally constrain it so it's set to the center of the container, and that looks great. So that's all done. What do we have for constraints on this guy? We have width and height, so that's fine. This is going to be our choose avatar button. Choose avatar. And let's go ahead and actually just remove its constraints for now. It's going to say command equal. And what we're going to do is we need an image here. Okay. So an image view. And this image is called profile default. All right, let's go ahead and set the size 100 by 100. So that looks good. And what we're going to do here, well, first off, let me set the constraints for this image here. So I'm going to say 40 from the bottom of the stack view above it, set the width and the height. So add those 3 constraints, and then horizontally in container as well. And then we're going to cheat a little bit, because if you were using this, you would think that you could click on this guy and be able to choose your avatar as well as this button right here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to actually make this button go over this image. All right. So how we're going to do that is we're going to set up some constraints. So what we're going to do is we're going to control drag, and we're going to say equal widths. And then if you control drag and do like a diagonal to it, what we want is top as well. So what that does is it sets the 2 tops to each other. And then we're going to go ahead and just drag down. and set the height to 130. There we go. Then we're going to set this to be horizontally in the container. And last, what we're going to do is set the alignment to be at the bottom here. All right, there we go. So basically what we did is we just created a button that is this big, which covers the UI image, but it's actually a button, and then we just dropped the alignment for the text to be at the very bottom. So now when a user clicks on what they're thinking, when they're thinking they're clicking on this image, they're actually clicking first on the button. All right, so that's what we're gonna do there. And then we're gonna need one more button. I'm gonna go ahead and copy this guy again and paste it over here. And let's see what kind of constraints we have. That's fine. And this is gonna say generate back. Oh, my computer's slowing down again. Generate background color. All right, so we got our last button here, generate background color, and that's just going to go right below our choose avatar button. So I'm going to constrain it 0 from the bottom. Let's give it a little bit of space, maybe 4, and then we're going to center it as well, horizontally in container. All right, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and let's run it. Change this to an iPhone 6s. Run that and see how it looks. I'm going to click on the menu, click on login. Don't have an account, sign up here, and boom. You know what? That looks really great. Yeah. All right, so the next thing that we're going to look at here is how do we dismiss this? Because if I click on this and we tell it to dismiss this view, what's going to actually happen is it's going to go back to the login view controller, and that's not what that's not really what we want. We want to be able to what's called unwind all the way back to the initial view controller. So that's what we're going to set up now. All right. So that's called an unwind segue. So what you got to do is the root view controller that you want to go back to, which is in our case all the way back from here to here, which is our channel VC. So we need to come over here to our channel VC and add an IB action that doesn't actually have anything connected to it, but it's an IB action. And we say IB action func, and we're just going to call it prepare for unwind. Okay, and that's going to be of type segue and UI storyboard segue. Okay, and we just do open close curly braces right there. So I'm going to save that. And then we jump over to back into storyboard. And over here in our last one in line, I'm going to click here and I'm going to control drag from view controller right to exit right here. And I'm going to say manual segue, prepare for unwind with segue. Okay. And then I'm going to grab right here, the unwind segue here, and we're going to give this an identifier, and we're going to call this unwind to channel. Okay. So I'm going to copy that, and let's go ahead and create a new segue constant. So over here in utilities, constants, and we're just going to say let unwind equal unwind to channel. All right, so we're going to save that. And then back here in our create account VC, we're going to need an IB action for that close button. So I'm going to hold option and click on main.storyboard to open up our assistant editor. And let's go ahead and scroll over to find that here. All right, so I'm going to grab this here, and I'm going to, oh, we haven't set the class for this view controller yet. So here, I'm going to select view controller and go up to our identity inspector, and I'm going to set it to, what do we call this? Create account VC. There we go. So now I can, I'm going to zoom back in on this guy. Now I can control drag over to our view controller file. I'm going to say close, pressed. All right, I'm going to say, oh, this is an action. So it's an action and connect. And just to kind of show you what would happen if we hadn't done that unwind and we were just trying to dismiss. So we'd say dismiss, true, and completion is, oops, true and completion is nil. So I'm going to run this real quick and come over to our menu, click login, don't have an account. So if I clicked on this, we would just come back to our old login. And yeah, you could do a kind of a double click to get out, but that's not really a great user experience. Once we log in, once we create an account and have all of that logic and everything working, you would expect to be able to, once you create the account, that it just dismisses everything and comes right back to the beginning. Okay, so that's why we're doing this. All right, so come back here, and the way to make the unwind segue work is pretty simple. We just do a regular perform segue. So I'm going to say perform segue with identifier, and the segue identifier is unwind. The sender is nil. Save that and run that one more time and make sure that's working. So what we should expect to see is when we get to the create account VC, if I click on the close button, we should unwind all the way back to the channel VC. All right, so let's see if that's working. I'm gonna open this up, click on login, don't have an account sign up here, and hey, there we go. We unwind all the way back to our channel VC, which is just what we wanted. All right, so let me see how we're doing on time here. Looks like we're about out of time, but we accomplished what we set out to do here, which was to create our create account VC here. We created an unwind segue so that we could get back all the way to our original VC, just like we wanted. And yeah, so we're looking good. We're getting about where we need to be to actually start working with the API, because we needed to get to this point because we have to be able to first create accounts on the API to do anything. That's the first point of being able to work with the API, because once you're able to create an account, you can get an authorization token and do everything else that we need to do. All right, so that's why we've been working so much with the UI, is to be able to get up to this point. And yeah, so in the next few lessons, we're going to start talking about the tools that we use to work with the API, some of the libraries that we're going to be using. And so we got some cool stuff coming up. Hope you guys are very excited. Oh, except I almost forgot, we need to commit and push our changes. So I'm going to say right here, we're on lesson 5. So I'm going to say git status. I'm going to say git add dot git commit dash m, and this was lesson 5. I'm going to push it, so I'm going to say git push origin lesson dash 05. All right, so we're good, and we'll see you in the next one.